I'm going to cover the steps on how to tape a corner, and I always use paper tape because it's pre-creased and it's going to give you a very professional, crisp looking corner, and it also resists tearing when you're using your compound knives. So the first step, I'm going to apply all-purpose joint compound to both sides, and I like using 2 knives just because it's easy to work the compound. And one mistake most homeowners make is they either apply too much compound underneath the tape or they don't apply 3 coats. So because I'm using an all-purpose compound, it's not going to dry real fast, and so it gives us time to work our compound all the way on both sides. And we need the compound to be wet so that we can embed the tape in it. So you want about 1/8 of an inch all the way down on both sides, and then we'll embed the tape into it. So I have 1/8 of an inch of compound smoothed all the way down, and we're going to pre-crease our paper, and then we're just going to center it right in the corner, and you can use your tool to kind of guide it. And then we're going to lightly press it at first, and then we're going to work all the way down. Now you can see there's a little bit of a bevel here. We can slide some compound underneath there to make sure it sticks. And we're just going to use the 2 knives, and we're going to work our way down one side first. Then we lightly press it. Then we can come back and compress a little more. And what we want to do is we want to force out excess compound. We want to leave about 1/16 of an inch of compound underneath this tape. So we're going to work this all the way down now with a 6-inch blade and smooth it out completely. So now that I've pressed out all the excess compound and I've smoothed this, and you can see how nice and crisp the corner is, I'm just going to put a very thin coat over the top of the tape. And I pulled that a little bit, so we'll come back and straighten that out on that side. But I'm going to go down one side at a time, and I'm just going to cover it with a very thin coat of compound. And we want to have no excess, and we want to smooth out any knife marks here. And so I'll do this on both sides, and because this is an all-purpose compound, we're going to let this dry 24 hours and put on our second coat. And the key to getting a very professional look is applying 3 coats of compound. So now I'll work down this side, and then I'll come back, and on this side I'll work compound all the way down. The first coat is dry, and so we're just going to take a compound knife and just scrape it to knock off any particles or high spots, and then we're going to apply our second coat. And the second coat, you want to use an 8 or a 10-inch blade. Now in this situation we have the molding to the closet here, so I'm only going to be able to use a 6-inch blade. And the key to getting an excellent professional finish is really just on our second coat, we're going to do one side and let it dry completely, and then we're going to do the other side and let it dry completely. And it's very difficult, especially for the average homeowner, to get both sides done at the same time, just because as you pull on one side you're going to be hitting the other side with the blade, and you're also going to be pushing some compound. So just to give you an idea, we're going to smooth the all-purpose joint compound, and you can see how it's pushing onto the other side, and that's why it's much easier to do just one side at a time. So I'm going to scrape it off, I'm going to come back, and we want to feather this the whole 6 inches on this side, and on the opposite side, once this is dry, I'm going to use this 10-inch blade over here. Now on the other side, you'll just come in and you'll knock down that compound that pushed off to the other side, being careful not to get into the corner. And you're just going to pull that smooth so there's no ridges, and you're just going to work all the way down. And now I start from the top, and we're trying to feather this all the way out the full 6 inches, and then on this side we're going to feather it out the full 10 inches. Now when I get down almost to the bottom, then I'll start from the bottom and blend it up so that you don't have a big pile of compound at the bottom. But that's the trick, and you can make multiple passes, and if you get a little compound or a ridge of compound on this side, just come in, and you can see that ridge that the knife creates. Then just come back in the corner and smooth it out. So I'll finish this side, I'll let it dry, I'll do the other side, and then we'll apply the third coat. Both sides are dry with the second coat, and it looks very good. The next thing we're going to want to do is get our third thin coat on, and this is probably the only time you might want to come with a sanding sponge. And I like a sanding sponge because it has a nice square edge on it, and you've got sandpaper on both sides. And because you're hitting the other side of the wall with your compound knife, you might have little particles and little ridges where you've left a little bit of compound. So just using a sanding sponge and just hitting your second coat quickly and just bringing down any little knife marks or edges. If you're doing a regular seam, you generally don't have to sand the second coat, but in this case you might want to just take a look at it, and if you need to, like here I see a little bit of a ripple, we can just hit it lightly and bring that down smooth. So now we're going to apply the third coat, and again, because of the molding here, I'm going to use a 6-inch blade here, but you should be using a 10 or a 12-inch blade to feather this out, and you're going to have a very professional finish. So again, using an all-purpose compound, and here on the top you can see there's a little bit of a notch here, or a little bit of a divot, and we're just going to float that compound in here. Again, what's nice about all-purpose compound is we have the time to come back and really work an area until it's very smooth. And if you have a little ridge like this, just take your knife, go wide, you can knock that down. Now you can see there's a ridge here. We're just going to go from the corner and very lightly float our compound knife, and making multiple passes we can just make that disappear. And then again, we're going to want to go on the other side, and we're just going to want to pull this and flatten down any knife marks or any ridges from the compound that pushed off. So I'm going to do this side, let it dry completely, and then a day later I'll do the other side on the third coat, and then we'll see how it looks. Both sides are dry and it looks fantastic. The corner looks very crisp. So now you want to take a sanding sponge or a sanding block and just go after it. You can smooth the corners. You'd want to wear a dust mask while you're doing this, but just start from the corner, just lightly sand it, and you can make it look very professional. Now if you have any little divots or areas you don't like, just grab a little compound. You can work in that area, let it dry, and then sand it smooth. So you don't have to be scared to go back and touch up any little areas. But those are the steps, and with that you can get a perfect professional looking corner.